I know your book covers so much, but one of the things that you're focused on at the moment, and it's particularly prevalent in a confusing time like we're in right now, is the power and the importance of compassion. And, I nod violently when I hear that, and then I go, but I'm not even sure what compassion is. How do you even define what compassion is?
Yeah. Well, I think we're more used to using the word empathy these days than we were, which is already a step in that direction of being able to put yourself in another person's shoes and imagine that there is another brain, another mind that is not yours and that might come to whatever situation you're in with a whole different set of perspectives and needs and wants. I think compassion is sort of the next stage where you're actually doing something active with that. You're not just putting yourself in the other person's shoes, but you're doing something to help them be their best self. And I think compassion is something that we need a lot of at the moment because a lot of us are struggling with being our best selves. And, there are very good reasons for that. We're in a very challenging time.
So if compassion grows from empathy, you start with empathy and that allows you to access compassion. How do you start by becoming more empathetic?
Well, I think, you very kindly introduced me and said that I use a lot of behavioral science in my work. And I do like going back to the research because it does help us get our arms around some things that are a little bit squidgy. It helps us sort of understand exactly the sorts of things that we're talking about now. And so what we know is that the average brain, when it feels surrounded by something that feels even possibly threatening, not definitely threatening, but maybe potentially threatening, and not necessarily physically threatening, but emotionally, existentially threatening. So things that undermine our sense of competence and control, our sense of being, respected and feeling that we have a place to belong. These things are rewarding for the brain, for the human brain, but take them away and we perceive a threat. And when the brain is threatened, we launch a defensive response, which many of us will know of as fight or flight, or as fight, flight, or freeze. And when
or faint
that happens,
is the other one I heard. Fight, flight, or faint, but similar things, which is like your little amygdala is freaking out, and that's kind of our basic responses.
That's right. So your amygdala is part of the system in your brain that's scanning the environment the whole time to see, is this a reward? Is this a threat? And responding accordingly. And I think what we know ever more clearly is that when people are in defensive mode, they're much more conscious of perhaps their competence and their control being undermined. Then there's less activity in the part of the brain that's responsible for all the clever stuff, all the and not just the analytical stuff, but also the the kindness and the gracefulness and the the ability to be creative and funny and witty and all of that. So there's less activity in that part of the brain, and that means that at the moment a lot of us are feeling like we're not quite at our best because genuinely we're not, because we're feeling out of our depth, because our competence is undermined, because our sense of control is undermined. We're slightly threatened a lot of the time, and we know what that does to our brains. And so, that's the root of empathy is to understand that this is a normal human reaction, and that we are experiencing it, and that other people are experiencing it, and that if you encounter bad behavior, there's an excellent chance it's because they own a brain that is currently on the defensive.
In some ways, we are surrounded by uncertainty and threat all the time, and it's one of the great fictions of our brain is to, in some ways, persuade us that it's not that bad, and we can carry on. But this pandemic has just made that sense of uncertainty more tangible and more palpable.
So true. Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to calm our brain down?
Yes.
So how do we do that?
Yeah, it's the perfect question because we do sometimes like uncertainty. We quite like not knowing what we're going to get for our birthday. We quite like a twist in a movie or a book.
True.
But uncertainty, when it's added to something negative, intensifies our response. And so, you're exactly right. It's not just that things are bad; it's that we don't even know how bad they are. It's just it's really, really uniquely stressful for all of us right now. And you can see that in the way that the brain reacts to uncertainty. So what can you do? Well, actually, pretty interesting. Even if you don't have a lot of certainty to grab onto, the sheer fact of focusing on what you do know, what you control, and who you are in a situation, those kinds of certainties will calm your brain and allow you to respond more effectively to the things that you simply cannot control and cannot be known. And it's like amplifying your certainties in the middle of a crisis will allow you, well, it's not like, I mean, it does. Amplifying your certainties helps you cope more effectively with the things that remain uncertain.
Hey, it's MBS here. If you've loved my book, The Coaching Habit, and millions have, well, make sure you pick up the additional resources at thecoachinghabit.com. Downloads, videos, lots of tools.